Hello, I am Lisa Gardner, CEO of OMS Strategic Advisors and host of the Uncompromised Podcast, where we've had an unwavering commitment to values, beliefs, authenticity, integrity, or character that brings heart and care to an organization. I'm bringing you some of the business's brightest, uncompromised executives and thought leaders to discuss challenging corporate norms. Get ready to be inspired by our next podcast episode featuring Tori Littlejohn, the first Black woman to hold the Senior Managing Director position at JLL, specializing in office tenant representation and services. With over 20 years of experience and a background in corporate finance at a Fortune 500 company, Tori brings a unique perspective to complex real estate transactions. Her expertise has been recognized with awards like Broker of the Year and Dallas 500 honoree. Join us as we uncover Tori's insights and accomplishments and explore her dedication to delivering exceptional value to her clients. Stay tuned for an episode filled with wisdom and impactful stories. Tori, we're going to jump into the first question.
Well, that was amazing. I'm excited.
This is exciting. So I'm going to jump into the first question, Tori. First of all, I do want to say this. I met you, and you have to make sure I have the date right. I met you first in 2008. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
Tell me where I met you.
First year. It had to be either 2004 or 2003.
SMU.
When we were under the hair, I was under the hairdryer at the beauty salon, and you had a text.
Right, that's right.
And I looked because it was the same textbook that I was studying. You were in the executive MBA program and I was in the full-time MBA program. And I had saved enough money to get my hair done. And I was just so excited to see that we were taking the same course.
Oh my goodness. You know what, Tori, you're absolutely right. I knew it was around SMU. I had the wrong year and you're right.
I didn't get to know you well and probably until 2008.
In 2008. And then I believe at that time, or maybe soon after, you got to know Lawrence and you guys became fast and furious friends. I say fast and furious. Yes. And business allies within the commercial real estate industry. I think that has been many years. And Tori, there are so many things that I've admired and respected about you. And first of all, I have to say it's your brilliance. Every time I read about you, it's the way that you have financially structured some of the largest deals in the Metroplex and nationally. And I have to tell you, as a sister, I've been so proud of you. I gleam every time. But most of all, it's your genuine and sincere demeanor, whether you are dealing with people professionally or personally. And you tend to bring a trust level and a comfort level that I think our listeners really need to see from you, even in the most intense discussions and situations. And I believe because of all of these qualities and more, you have broken through some serious ceilings and you will continue. It's still not done, just to let you know.
Well, thank you.
It is. It's not done. And besides that, you're a wonderful mom of two very smart and beautiful children and a wonderful and supportive wife. I have seen that up close and personal, and that has inspired me as well about you. And you are needed on many platforms. I want to say that personally to you. You are needed on many platforms to continue to set the standard and be the example your peers need and the generation behind you. So I just want to first say those words about you from my heart.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So here's my first question. Here it goes. So first, just want you to tell the listeners, where did you grow up? And how did the environment help shape who you are today? Parents, siblings, your community. If you could just give us a little background on you from that standpoint.
Yeah. So I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. My parents were educators. My dad, when he retired, he was elementary principal. He had a history of education for quite a long while. He spent some time in healthcare, but he was an educator for the majority of his career. My mother, when she retired, she had been a teacher, but retired as a guidance counselor, and she had been a guidance counselor for quite a long time. So they were both in education. And so education, of course, was really, really important to them. I think it was important to them for many reasons. I think partially because they were very educated. I think I don't even know if I can count on two hands the degrees that they have, because they were always seeking more and more education, masters of this or that or what have you, et cetera. But also because I think they felt like they were held back and some things that they want to do in life because their education was somewhat limited. When they came out of school, it was kind of either you can be a doctor, maybe you can be a lawyer, but you can definitely be a teacher. The schools that they were kind of put in front of them where they could go was very, very limited. And so from the very beginning, it was kind of like the world is your oyster. Even if we can't afford it, we're going to figure out a way for you to go wherever you want to go to school. So my mother also played in that arena of getting kids into school as well. And so she kind of knew, you taking Latin in 5th grade, you're doing that camp. She was very, 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 things we never understood why we had to do the things we do. It all makes sense in the end, just to really help make us really well-rounded individuals. So I say that because it was deeply rooted to have a sense of how important it was to be educated, because it was also something that no one can ever take from you, your education. And so my parents, I think their thought was, our kids are going to go to school and get a great education. And I don't necessarily know that they wanted us to be entrepreneurs or this or that, but they just wanted us to be very well educated and have great jobs and possibly retire with a pension or something like that. So we both were very well educated. My brother went to the University of Virginia. I went to the University of North Carolina. We got great jobs. And I decided, of course, I was going to get my master's degree because they kept thinking, you got to get more degrees. That was kind of ingrained in my head. And so I worked at American Airlines when I graduated undergrad at UNC. And I was in the finance program there, but you saw people who were coming around you, coming back in the airline, that they came from getting their MBAs and they were making twice as much money as you were making. So we'll start turning, okay, you need to be spit out, go get your MBA, and you can come back to the travel industry or another finance position someplace else and get paid more money.
That's right.
I went to SMU because at that time I was dating a guy from Fort Worth, and I had no reason to apply to any Texas schools. I was not from Texas, and he gave me a reason to apply to Texas schools. And so we were engaged and got married, and I ended up going to SMU, which was great for me, being from Dallas.
Yes.
Not really understanding the engine, the machine, the industries that make Dallas tick.
Yes.
And, also knowing that I was probably going to be here long term because he was from Fort Worth and his family was here. And I liked the city. But also when I was working at the airline, every opportunity I got, I was on a plane somewhere. We worked hard Monday through Friday, but that was the allure of the job. Work hard Monday through Friday. You pack some cold clothes and warm clothes on Friday morning. You figure out what flights are open, and either you're in the Caribbean or you're in Canada or you're in South America, and you're just traveling the world, which was a great experience in and of itself. But after a while, you get stuck in enough airports and you decide, okay, I want to be able to afford those plane tickets and not be a non-rev standby passenger. I went to SMU, not thinking that I would get out in real estate, but just thinking that I would come back out into another corporate finance role at a big company.
Yes.
And I was kind of on that path. SMU had a mentor protege program. And so you got to kind of pick who you wanted to be your mentor, your top, 2 or 3 choices. And so for me, it was really important for me to pick a woman. I just wanted a female. I wasn't looking for necessarily an industry, but I had heard that people in real estate are pretty well connected and know a little bit of, enough to be dangerous in any and every industry and have connections. And so I thought I want a female. And then I saw that there was a female in real estate. Her name was Susan Powski, and she became my mentor. And at that time, she had just left Cushman & Wakefield to work at Staubach. Serendipitous because she didn't work at the Staubach company for a long time, but she was there for the period of time, that I would meet with her for lunch and just talk about, what I wanted to do, kind of what my skill set was. And she just encouraged me to open my mind. Like, what have you thought about real estate? I really hadn't. The only thing I knew about real estate were the people that were in residential real estate. My husband was a banker at that time, so he was in commercial real estate, but he was on the lending side. So he was more financing and that type of thing, not on the brokerage side. And I just didn't know anybody in brokerage to even understand it or to think about it. And so she started talking about, their sales pitches and now how they're encountering the CFO all the time when they are decision makers. And what a compliment it would be to have someone like me who indirectly worked for the CFO that understood that language, understood, the variables, understood what companies are really looking for when they're making decisions about big capital expenditures. And that was really my role previously. So the wheels just started turning. And I worked for them between my first and my second year of the MBA program. It was a full-time program. I interned with them. And let me tell you, it was a step back for me financially because I was making a lot less money in that internship period than I had been at American Airlines. I was making a lot less money in that internship period than a lot of my peers.
Mhm.
Some of who I knew were not quite as intelligent as I mean, but you just had to kind of like, I was taking a step back to take a chance to really understand what this was, because what
Mhm.
I did understood was there was money to be made. And that wasn't my only motivation, but that wasn't to make more money.
Mhm.
Once I was at that company, I will say one thing that was really, really apparent to me is that these people had a great work-life balance. They they were coaching their kids, practices, and everybody embraced that. The
Okay.
camaraderie was there. They were working hard. They were
Yes.
and they were right. They were meeting with CFOs and making decisions that were determining, some of the future of cities somewhat. I mean,
Mhm.
talk
Mhm.
about deals like Toyota, like that has truly impacted a city, you know,
Mhm.
for,
Mhm.
for years.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there were things going on and imprints that were being made within the city that I didn't even realize that were related to real estate. And I, quite
Mhm.
frankly, didn't really realize how much real estate is really woven into the fabric of Dallas and Dallas as a city, Dallas industry, Dallas growth, just in general. So I just, fell in love with, I didn't know if it was the company or real estate, but I have to figure out how to be a part of this. In my mind, it was somewhat of a movement.
Right. And there's
So
an excitement to it as well when you're in the process of knowing that you're moving or shifting something that's significant,
Right.
different. And I
Bringing
think that's what you're talking
bring
about.
bringing
Absolutely.
jobs, is bringing activity. It
Yes.
changes things, right?
Right.
And I didn't even realize the magnitude of some of the things that, corporate relocations. I didn't even realize all the things that it touched at that point. It was somewhat tangible, definitely palpable. When I graduated, I took the job with the Starbucks company, which is really hilarious because it was a lot less money than other offers that I had, and the compensation structure was completely different. In fact, I
Right.
really wasn't comfortable with it at all. I remember talking to my dad, who, he was like, "Let me get this straight. Like, you paid what? First of all, you got out of undergrad debt free, but you went into debt to go to grad school. Now you're going to come out making, you know, a lot less money than you were making, you know, possibly commissions, and you're going to be working for Starbucks." And so he thought I was going to work, for Starbucks, which is not a bad company at all, but he just didn't understand the logic of what I was doing.
Right. Right.
So I had to educate them on
Yes.
paths in commercial real estate, because
Yes.
what they knew and what they understood was salary, at Fortune 500 company.
Right. Bonus.
They,
Right.
right, they understood that, you know.
Right. Right.
So having to educate them on something that was different from that. And then also really just taking a leap. Like I always felt like I had confidence in myself, but it can be a little daunting when you don't see anybody that looks like you that has successfully done this.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
to say that they weren't out there. I just did not see them. And in Dallas, I definitely didn't see a lot of them in Dallas. That's why when I met Lawrence, I was like, "Whoa, my brother, where have you been?"
I remember those.
The family
I remember that season. Yes.
reunion.
I remember that scene as well. I want to segue into a little bit of what you're saying here. My next question,
Mhm.
um, I'm actually going to segue to a different question. Let me ask you this, since we're talking about just your professional side, let me add this in here. What strategies have you used as an executive to navigate change, pull down structures, and build new ones? And what I mean by that is a little bit of what you're talking about when you saw Lawrence, right? What do you believe you've contributed to this industry to continue to help it change in its organizational structures and its people, only for the betterment for everybody? What else you've done?
I have. It is hard sometimes to be in environments and not allowed to change you. So
Yes, I would agree.
I think that I've always tried to maintain some sense of a true north. I've always tried to make sure that I can't get caught up in everything, right? And I'm not just talking about material things. Sometimes I'm just think in general, like I am naturally against the grain of some things that are going on, period, right? And
Right,
so
right.
I think that sometimes to be a little bit slower my reaction, to digest
Mhm,
things, to really understand the impact of what I'm about to say and what I'm about to do. I have to
mhm,
be a little bit more cautious, but
mhm.
really more than anything, just steadfast in my thoughts and my beliefs. And as I've gotten older, it's gotten easier. As I've
Mhm.
gotten older, I don't care if my hair is straightened or not. I'm gonna come,
Mhm.
I don't care. Not that I don't care,
That's
but my
right.
hair is beautiful the way it is. And so I'm not trying to
Right.
make anybody else comfortable. And so I think it's taken a while to get there where it's
Yes.
not my job to bend to make anyone else comfortable, you know.
Right.
And especially if who I am and what I represent, what I'm doing is not unreasonable, unfair. And so I think a lot of me is just making sure that I'm staying true and authentic to who I am and making sure I have reminders of that around me at work,
Yes. Yes.
the
Absolutely. It's
things
a
that I do and the people that I hang out with and how whenever I go to vacation, all those things just to make sure I kind of can pull myself pull myself back sometimes.
absolutely. And I think what you're trying to say here too is that when we're true to ourselves, sometimes that's the biggest change we can make within an organizational structure.
100%.
It's sometimes the most deepest change we can
If I
make.
had put what I just said in Chat GPT, that's exactly what I would want to come out.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. And leads to another questions. What do you believe? And we can look at this two different ways. So what it should not compromise as people of color? What have you seen compromised among people of color? Which I think we were sort of edging in that way when you gave the answers you gave previously.
Yeah. So what do I think we shouldn't compromise?
Yes. What is
I
it we should not compromise as people of color? And what have you seen compromised among people of color?
So there are several things. First of all, I think the biggest issue right now is
Mhm.
access and opportunity, but not intelligence, right? And
Right.
so I think we should not compromise our desire and our work to be steadfast
Mhm.
in making sure
Mhm.
that there is fair access and opportunity. I
Mm.
don't mean that
Mm.
you have to
Mm.
hire somebody Black for this position or that
Right.
you have to hire a woman for this position. What I
Right.
mean is, I want, if there are qualified people of all colors, races, and genders,
That's
I
right.
want them to have access and opportunity to apply for
Right.
that position. So I'm not trying to give anybody an unfair leg up. I'm just trying to give everybody access and opportunity. I want to make sure that we're not just looking at this school or that school. And I
Mhm.
think do that, the cream is going to rise to the top, regardless of the color that
Yes.
they are.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
that's one thing. I think that you asked the question of what are we doing?
Yes. What has been compromised among people of color?
Okay, so
What?
I think what we've what compromises we've made is I think that there are a lot of um, there's this pendulum, right?
Mhm.
Where there's all of a sudden, people are throwing money left and right at different things,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it now it's going to stop, or a lot of it's going to stop.
Absolutely.
Fun,
Absolutely.
you know.
Mhm.
So I think that there's such a reactionary sometimes things that sometimes it not necessarily misguide us, but it can take our eye off the ball because we think things are getting done, or we think that positions have been created to get things done, or whatever. Well, it doesn't matter how many positions they create. I still have to have some sort of responsibility to make
Mhm.
sure that
Mhm.
everybody's getting access and opportunity. I don't care how many positions they create within the company for that or how much money. And not just talking about my company, but in general.
In
Uh,
general, right, within corporate, right.
yeah. Just getting a little bit comfortable and that things may be getting done. You know,
Mhm.
so I think that's one. I think, some mistakes that I think that I've made. I think that sometimes I did not feel like that I had enough power or a large enough voice
Mm.
or was even
Mhm.
at the table
Yes.
really
Yes.
speak when I was in disagreement with things or when things really irritated me. Or
Yes.
even sometimes when things were wrong, I did have the ability to say something.
Mhm.
I did not let the process carry out the way it should because I did not want to be considered the person that was stirring up too much trouble because I was very much keep your head down, work hard, da, 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 da. So I think sometimes that, just not wanting to be in that negative spotlight has
Mhm.
taken out, I think I've kind of shirked some little responsibility that I probably had. That if it happened, things like that occur today would be a completely different story. So,
You know what? And I'd have to say that a lot of us could relate to that answer. I know that I
yeah,
can.
yeah,
And I think you're right. With age, there is a certain amount of boldness and courage that we eventually attain, which comes out of maturity and more of
no,
who we
definitely.
are. Where now we realize that this season of life, it's
Mhm.
all about how am I going to leave it better than when I came, right?
Well, at least let's be real. It has a little bit of something to do with what you got saved in that bank account, because if they let me go right now, I wouldn't be happy, but I wouldn't be on the street.
Oh, right, exactly. Versus when you were younger, it's a whole
15 years
nother.
ago, I mean, I might be, so
Exactly. It's a whole nother thing.
it's a whole other thing.
It
Yeah.
is. And I think I'm glad that you said that, because I think that our listeners also need to understand it does depend on the season of life. And that season is where you are financially, where your kids are in school. Are they small? Are they right? It's all of that, So, but there is something about using our voice and having the courage to do so, which leads me to how do you explain diversity, equity, and inclusion? And I know that we are changing vocabulary as we go, with especially the affirmative action decision that's come down. But how do you explain diversity, equity, and inclusion to those who are trying to understand the importance of it within our professional and social platforms and organizations?
That's a very good question. I wish I'd had that one before, because I would have had a really profound answer for you, Lisa. But I think diversity to me is it's just, things are just not homogenous, right? So I think diversity is, it could be of color, but it could be, for a while, like 85% of the people that I worked with lived in a certain area and I didn't. So I was bringing some diversity because I lived someplace different. So I think diversity to me is just different perspectives.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
opinion. It's not necessarily just about a color,
about race.
or
Yes,
race. It's not about
absolutely.
race, what have you. Diversity to me, I joke about it as, I'm entering a different season age-wise, and I talk to some of the analysts. Like, diversity is obviously me having a conversation with the analysts and realizing that this section here, that's not the hot part of town anymore. And I was like, really? Well, it wasn't. Well, I mean, it was 25 years ago when it was the hot part of town for me, right? So I think,
absolutely.
right. So that's just a conversation. And so it's good for me to have diverse teams when we're having clients in town talking about relocating, because I have someone coming from generation this, generation that, my generation, and to talk to. So diversity is just different perspectives, whether that's about age, color, gender. And I think diversity, honestly, I think one thing that gets overlooked is, I always have a joke, like, for the past however many years, like, my partner has been that 55 to 65-year-old white guy.
Yes.
I was adding diversity to him, but he was adding diversity to me also. So it goes both ways. Like,
it does. Absolutely.
We always ways. There are several rooms that when I walk in, I may have absolutely nothing in common with the person sitting at the table, but my partner will vice versa. And we need to be smart enough to understand that and make sure we're capitalizing off of all forms of diversity.
I would agree. I always like to use we always say that diversity could be someone from New Jersey, it could be a white female from New Jersey versus a white female from California, right? They're going to come to the table totally two different. So geography wise, it's a different perspective as well, right? As well as age and right. But as we look at trying to
so we're talking about equity now, right?
Now let's talk about equity. Get me on equity. And then also, let me just make one more comment, that we do want, like you said, you do want the client we're calling on, you want it to look like the marketplace we serve. You want the team serve.
Yeah.
So, diversity does go into, yes, a 55 aged old white male. It could be a 55 aged old Black female, but we want it to be a cross section to look like the marketplace we serve. But go ahead, let's go to equity. What is that?
Equity, so I always joke about, it doesn't matter if I'm faster than the person next to me. If I'm starting 400 yards behind them, I might be faster, but if I'm starting 400 yards behind or 200 yards behind or what have you, it's going to be impossible for me to beat them or even really have a race that's, comparable. Right.
Right.
And I think when I think of equity, I think of trying to somewhat enable people to have a competition that's really fair, or not even competition, but opportunities that are fair, or access that is fair. Okay. And so someone won't know that I'm faster unless I'm able to race that person from the right starting line, right? Together.
Right.
So I'm not saying make me the winner. I'm saying let's make sure that everybody's got the same starting blocks, or if they don't, okay, What
How
are
do
some
we get
ways
it?
that we can help that? Is it that we're doing outreach programs to introduce people to different careers in real estate? Yes, we are doing that, right? Is
Yeah.
it that we're making sure that we are recruiting on lots of different types of campuses? Yes, we are doing that. Is it that we are not just hiring, people who are related to us? And so I think when we talk about equity, in no sense should equity be unfair. If anything, equity should be all about making sure people have an opportunity or access. Because let me tell you what, if I get 2 resumes, I don't want to know. Sometimes I don't want to know the name,
Yes.
but
Yes.
because if it's objective, then
Yes.
but what I want to know is that did we make sure we did everything we could to have a diverse candidate base in the system? Did we make sure we did everything to make sure that this opportunity was, we put feelers out in different, I'm saying, that with this opportunity was seen by diverse set of people, that type of thing. And then
Absolutely.
hire the best candidate for the job.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And that tends to even roll back into affirmative action,
Yeah.
The affirmative action decision by the Supreme Court, how has it affected our DI platforms within corporate America, or does it?
I don't think we know yet.
We don't know. And how do we make sure we're moving forward
Mm-hmm.
so that our corporate entities and entrepreneurial successes look like the marketplace we serve? But I think it goes back to the fact that is the direction.
Mm-hmm.
It was first you had to be qualified, and you talked about it. It's about access. It's about making sure the equity, the equity starting line, right? That everyone starts at the same place, right? And I think that is what that's what when it comes to equity as well. So, okay, inclusion. What's the third one? Inclusion.
So inclusion is and I'm actually going at this in terms from females right now, just because
Yes.
I think that right now I'm seeing a lot of younger females who are getting to a certain point in life where they may have think about having kids and have some concerns about how that's going to play out in this industry.
Yes.
How that's going to play out when you have to take however many months off maternity leave and that type of thing, and what's going to happen to your splits, things like that. And so I'm just going to look at it from a female perspective right now, just not to
That
make
sounds great.
about race.
Yes, that
I
sounds
think
great.
inclusion is making sure that you are holding hands with these people so that they understand how you're not going to be segregated a bunch with things
Yes.
like that going on because of who you are, what you have going on in your life. I think
Yes.
inclusion is making sure that you have programs that support people who may be pushed out of this industry, quite frankly, if you don't figure out a way for them to live life and continue as a broker. So that may be but I think inclusion, we've all heard that, like, is it like diversity is being danced, inclusion is asked to dance.
Yes, the accident,
So,
right?
yeah, I think sometimes that is actively making sure you have these mentor protege programs, because there is no way I could be where I am right now in this company if I didn't have people who were invested in my success.
That's right. That's right.
Extremely invested in success, not even for personal gain. Okay.
Absolutely.
Not even for personal or financial gain. Just people at this company who met me, all the work that I was doing, got to know the person that I am, and decided they were definitely going to be rooted in that when I'm not at tables, that they were going to be speaking up for me and
Or
about
you at that that's right.
right.
That's
And so
right.
to me, that is inclusion. I have been included in the plan of this company and this company's growth and success.
Absolutely.
Make-
And will continue to be so, obviously. So, yes.
To me, that's inclusion, is making sure that I am, not letting people fall by the wayside.
That's right.
If they're doing a good job and doing all the things that they're supposed to be doing and showing their commitment and hard work and all that good stuff, but that
That's
I
right.
am making a plan and I have a vested interest in seeing them succeed and seeing them be a part of the growth and development and success of the company.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
they
Know it.
and they know it.
And they know it,
Yeah.
because that even creates a different framework and a mind frame of how they feel from day to day. Absolutely. I love that. Was the perfect answer on inclusion. Okay, let me switch around. Let's get off of that. Let me ask you this: as an executive of a global firm, where do you see people struggling in not compromising who they are or when they execute their job assignments? And can you give me an example?
I think when times get lean, you start to really see people crackle under pressure when it comes to how do I say this? just think sometimes money can be the root of all evil, right? And so
Yeah.
I think a lot of times when things get lean, it comes down to money and split discussions and things like that. That's when I have seen the worst in people.
Right.
And someone who knows, that might be a conversation said about me at some point, right? I've been sticking to my true north when I've been focused on something else. I'm not sure. I would hope not,
Right.
but I do think that sometimes it's easier for people away from who they really are, who they hope to be. Quite frankly, they can get sometimes distracted by money, and whether that is, we got to do cuts, we got to do, whatever. I think that's what I think when it involves. And
I think
the larger the amount of money,
the more so.
the more so.
Yes. Through the years, especially the past 15 years, we've been in business as entrepreneurials, as an MBE firm. I think I have seen that as well at the table. For sure, I've seen that. I would agree with you. And then how do you handle adversity in such a complex structure and global firm like JLL? How do you handle adversity?
One day at a time. I guess really in the year and a half to 2 years that I've been in this position, there have been some things that I just have not been able. Okay. And I think as a goal-oriented person, that's a very hard pill to swallow. But what I have had to do is just take smaller bites. Now the goal is to still eat the whole apple.
Absolutely.
I have to make this bite today and this bite tomorrow. And then by the time, so it's kind of like January, February, March. By the time I get to June, I can look back and I was like, well, I've eaten half the apple. Okay. Let's start there. Let's start there.
Right.
We're going to take the rest of the apple. So, how they say you don't try to boil the ocean. I think really that's just how I just kind of have to pick and choose my battles, the ones that I know I can attack and overcome immediately. Mid-range goals and some that are long aspirational goals, but and also learning, I'm not gonna get everything I want. Just a blessing that I'm able to do as much. But one thing that I didn't say from the very beginning is I think strategically, this was about a year and a half ago. I can't remember the book that I was reading, but having a discussion with a girlfriend about it is just the whole attitude of gratitude. I say her name, my girlfriend, her name is Janora McDuffie, really good friend of mine. And she did a TED talk about how so many times that we come and we start in January, we have to have these vision boards, everything we want to achieve.
Right.
Goals. Right. Sometimes if you look at it at the end of the year, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't achieve this and that. I'm not 50 pounds lighter. I didn't. And so she said she just changed her frame of reference and she started her year off with a gratitude board. Still does her vision board.
But she has a
gratitude board and it just puts you in a different frame of reference. Okay. These are the things I'm extremely happy for. I'm going to sit this on my desk and every morning I'm going to look at that.
Yes.
I'm thankful.
Okay. That's right.
Let me take another bite of apple. And so I think it's not that it takes your eye off of the vision and the goals and things like that, but just coming from a different perspective has helped me feel a little bit better about the steps that I take.
Yes.
I also feel a little bit better that, I don't feel as bad about everything that I cannot do. And to me, that's just some of the adversity that I'm challenging right now. There's some things that I can't impact I can't impact everything.
And it's funny how you said, I'm taking this step of gratitude because actually I believe that's what we're supposed to do. I believe that is where it comes with Thanksgiving first, then all other things come, right? And I know you're a woman of faith as well. So you know where I'm going with that, to be anxious for nothing, but in Thanksgiving, which is first, which is the gratitude board. So there's a balance I think you're talking about between gratitude and the vision, right?
Up until a few months ago, and this is horrible, but up until a few months ago, I would wake up in the middle of the night worried about things like, did I respond to that email? Or I would get up and start typing an email and just say, okay, well, I'm not going to let it send it out until 8 in the morning, but it's 3:00 in the morning and I'm in bed. And I'm like,
doing it right.
Like, why am I not getting me a good night's rest?
Yes.
Be thankful for the fact that I had a good night rest and that I can go and attack the problems of the day.
Very good.
Things like that. I just, there's only so much you can do.
That's right.
20 hours in a day, but we've been put on this earth for a reason.
Yes.
And we do have power.
Yes, we do.
So we just need to harness it and do what we can when we're going out to battle. Sometimes you just have to slay one dragon at a time.
That's right. One dragon at a time, which brings me to this question how has your faith played a huge part in your career? I mean, I probably could answer for you a little bit, but I do want you to say it out loud. Just How
Yeah.
does faith part in you daily and just everything that I know that we talked a little bit through the adversity piece, but
So, it's really interesting. I told you I grew up in St. Louis, and I grew up in a church that on a good day, we
mhm,
probably had 30 members on a good day. And I mean, when I say we probably had maybe 10
mhm,
pews in the church, it was
mhm,
a very small church. And right now it's an area of the city that's very blighted, like tons of homes, what have you. But when I think about all that church poured into me, and not just the building of the church, the church with the people,
absolutely.
right?
Yes,
But all that
yes,
they poured into me, all
yes,
they expected of me,
yes,
all that they expected of me in giving back to
yes,
around me.
around you. Yeah,
It's just such an integral part of me. There's not a time that we go home that I'm not trying to go back to that church. There's not a year that we're not trying to make sure that the scholarship program is where, it should be. I think that church that, every year that, they gave me scholarship to pay for my books, and
mm,
others. And as small as our church was, just,
yes,
what bloomed from that church, and not just education wise. I mean, you're
right,
talking about police officers, and I mean, just all over. I just think that
right.
it's so obvious what pouring into people through
Hmm.
God has done for me and my family.
That's right.
And so I just think that it's such an integral part of who we are. My father-in-law, and very interesting, was a minister of a church very similar to mine. So it was kind of funny when my husband and I started dating, and he took me to his church, and they had a few more pews, but they probably had about the same amount of members. But it just feels like family, right? And
Right.
same thing, when people's birthday are, when the birthday,
Yes,
when the kids are going off to school,
yes,
and
yes,
you get the call or finals, I would
yes,
get the call from my minister around finals, wishing us well and things like that.
yes.
It's just a very, it was just really part of it. Now, what I will say is that, we know my husband's father passed away a few years ago, and he was the minister of his church until he was 94, 95.
Wow.
Until his last few months, he was still very much preaching. But so I will say it's harder to have that same sense of community in the life that my husband and I have built. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that it it's also I'm a little more fearful because I'm an adult now and I know
Yes,
everything going on in this world,
yes, ma'am.
and
Yes,
how there is somewhat of an attack on our souls to an extent. But
yes, it is.
when I say true north, that's what I mean.
True north. That's right. That's right.
And I
That's
hope
right.
that we're instilling that in our kids. That's our goal.
Exactly, because the communities have changed. I
Yeah.
think we discussed that around our home as well, is
Yeah.
that, you knew Miss So-and-so down the street, you knew the church member, everyone had eyes on everyone's
Yeah.
children. And
I
and
mean,
the
and
prayers,
we would eat
yes,
their food. Now I'm like, oh,
I
I'm eating everybody's food now.
because we ate everyone's food, right?
We get
Within
every
that small
food.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the prayers that were poured out on us. I mean, we're still reaping the benefit and the blessing of the prayers of old. I
Yeah.
mean, so
Yeah.
there's just something about that community church that, yes, I get what you're saying. Let's end with this. What brings your heart joy over the span of your career? Can you believe I'm saying the span of your career, Tori?
Brings my heart joy is that I'm not the only one in a position like this. So I think there are leaps and bounds that we can make, but I do think we've come a long way. And
Absolutely.
it's exciting to see people like you and your husband who have thriving businesses that are doing this work. It is exciting and joyful to see people, competitors who look like
Yes.
me, who
Yes.
who are doing this work. It is
Yes.
to see the younger people coming up in the business who look like me. And when I say look like me, not just Black, but female,
Right.
it,
That's
it
right.
does it does bring me joy that I get excited about it, and excited about what the next generation is going to look like. Like whoever else might hold this seat, and wherever else I might go on to do. I think it's given me a lot of confidence, to go on to eventually, if I'm doing something different than this, I'm proud of what I've done. I'm proud of the opportunities that I've had.
Absolutely.
I'm proud of those I've been able to introduce to this world of commercial real estate, whether it was through teaching or organizations or
Hmm.
just anything.
Hmm.
Joy that I feel like I've left some sort of a print. Not necessarily a blueprint, but maybe a fingerprint.
But you know what, Tori, as I look at you, I look at many. I mean, we could mention even, I think, T. Dallas out of Atlanta, just so many. You guys, you're pioneer. You are a pioneer in this business. Just think about that, Tori. Have opened doors and roads for those who come after you. And it's not just about, I love how you said it, it's female, yes, it's race, but it's for all. People don't realize.
Even girls from St. Louis, because quite frankly, when I run into them, I'm like, together from St. Louis, literally, like it's all that wrapped up. That makes
all of that.
Like other people that have just a little bit of you.
That's right.
Walking through this store.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And is there any words you want to share to our listeners who are thriving to live their life uncompromised, professionally and personally? Sort of your last words here.
Just be authentically you. Love who you are and what you bring to the table. And everything is not for everybody. Just find what's really for you.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Time.
I appreciate you.
You're blessed by being a guest on this podcast.
I'm excited to see and hear all the other guests as well.
Thank you, Tori Littlejohn.